Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Ryan. Welcome back to Speak Up, the podcast for everyday people who are serious about learning English in a smart, simple way. Whether you're riding the bus, doing dishes, or just relaxing, you're in the right place to grow your English skills without feeling overwhelmed.
Hi, friends. I'm Priya, and we're so happy to have you with us. If this is your first time, welcome. And if you've been listening for a while, thanks for coming back. This show is made for people just like you, hardworking, curious, and ready to take your English to the next level.
Exactly. Today's topic is one we really believe in. It's about learning English the right way. No confusing grammar lessons or boring textbooks. Just clear steps that actually help you speak and understand real English in everyday life.
And we're going to break it all down, step by step. So grab a notebook or just listen along as we share some powerful rules that can change how you learn English forever.
So we've talked about how this show is all about learning real English in a simple, practical way. Now, let's dive into something that might surprise you. A lot of people think they need to speak first to get better. But actually, the first step should be listening. Just listening. Before you try to memorize grammar or start speaking full sentences, you need to train your ears. Think about how babies learn. They listen for months before they say a single word. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Why listening is the secret power behind strong English skills.
Yes, Ryan, and I love that baby example because it's so true. When you start with listening, you give your brain time to absorb the rhythm, the sounds, and the flow of English. You're not trying to force words out. You're learning how the language feels. Even if you don't catch every word, that's okay. The goal isn't to understand everything. It's to let English become familiar. So just hit play on a podcast or a video with subtitles and let your brain do the work in the background. It's learning even when it doesn't feel like studying.
Exactly. And here's something practical. Choose something fun to listen to, maybe a YouTube video on a topic you enjoy, or a short TED Talk with subtitles. You don't need to understand every sentence. Just aim for 30 minutes of listening a day. It can be while you're cleaning, walking, or even relaxing. That's what we mean when we say real English. No textbooks, no pressure. Just real voices and real conversations. Trust me. Do this daily and you'll notice the difference in how much faster you understand people.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be complicated. If you like music, start with English songs. If you're into cooking, watch recipe videos. The idea is to enjoy it. The more you enjoy listening, the longer you'll stick with it. And over time, you'll start picking up common phrases, sentence patterns, and pronunciation. That's the beauty of listening first. It builds your foundation without stress. So if you're just starting out, don't rush into speaking. Just listen, soak it in, and let English become a natural sound in your daily life.
Right. I actually remember one of our listeners telling us they improved their English just by watching 5 minutes of news every morning in English. Just 5 minutes. It shows that consistency beats perfection. And again, don't worry if you don't catch everything. You're building familiarity, not taking a test. Over time, your brain connects the sounds to meaning without needing to translate every word. That's powerful. That's how you start building fluency from the ground up.
And once you start doing this daily, you'll notice something really cool. Your confidence grows even before you say a word. That's because your ears start recognizing words, your brain starts connecting them, and when the time comes to speak, it feels natural. That's the silent power of listening. It works quietly, but it builds something strong inside you. So make it a habit. Start with small steps. Choose one thing today, maybe this podcast, and just listen. That's your first step to learning English the right way.
So now that we've understood how powerful listening is as the first step, let's talk about something that confuses a lot of learners: grammar. Now, don't get me wrong, grammar has its place. But trying to study grammar rules first is one of the biggest mistakes people make when learning English. It slows you down. Why? Because when you focus on grammar, your brain starts thinking too much. You pause, you second guess, and suddenly speaking English feels like solving a math problem, not having a conversation. That's not what we want.
Exactly. When you try to remember rules while speaking, it makes you freeze up. And fluency isn't about being perfect, it's about being comfortable. Instead of memorizing grammar, focus on the way English sounds in real life. Pay attention to phrases and patterns that people use again and again. For example, instead of thinking, is this present perfect or past simple? Just notice how someone says, I've already eaten. That's a chunk you can use as it is. No grammar breakdown needed.
Right, and that's where learning through phrases and stories comes in. Think of language like music. You don't learn music by reading theory. You learn by listening and copying songs. It's the same with English. If you hear, how's it going, 20 times in real situations, it sticks. That's what learn English naturally really means. You're not forcing grammar in, you're absorbing language like a human, not a textbook. So next time you hear a useful phrase, repeat it, copy it, use it. That's how real fluency grows.
100%. I always tell learners, stop treating English like a puzzle. Treat it like a story. If you listen to someone tell a story in English, your brain picks up the rhythm, the expressions, the feeling of the language. And stories are full of useful phrases, not just single words, but full expressions like, I had no idea, or that makes sense. These are the tools that help you speak fluent English without thinking about grammar all the time.
And here's a quick tip. Try shadowing. That means listening to a short sentence and repeating it out loud, exactly the way it sounds. No grammar analysis, just copy the tone and rhythm. If you do this with native speakers, maybe from a podcast or a short video, you start to feel the language. It's one of the most powerful ways to improve without studying rules. It's like learning to dance by moving with the music, not reading about dance steps.
Yes, and don't worry about small grammar mistakes. They don't stop communication. Native speakers make them too. What really matters is flow and confidence. So if you want to speak English fluently, let grammar take a backseat. Focus on hearing the language, feeling the phrases, and using them in real situations. That's when your brain really starts to learn. And that's when English starts feeling like a living language, not a subject in school.
So now that we've talked about feeling the language, instead of getting stuck in grammar, let's build on that. There's a saying I love, learn with your ears, not just your eyes. It's so true for English learners. A lot of people spend hours reading books and looking at grammar exercises, but they barely hear the language. And that's a problem. Real spoken English sounds very different from written English. If you want to speak fluently, you have to train your ears. Listening helps you build that internal sense of grammar, tone, and timing.
Yes, and the best part is, it's actually fun. You can improve your English just by listening to things you enjoy. Podcasts, movies, YouTube shows, anything that uses real, natural English. And here's where it gets interesting. When you listen actively, you begin to feel where words go, how they sound, and how the rhythm flows. This is what gives you confidence when speaking. Reading teaches you words, but listening teaches you how to use them. That's why good English listening skills are such a game changer.
Exactly. And here's one of my favorite techniques, shadowing. It sounds fancy, but it's simple. Just take a short clip of someone speaking in English, like a line from a movie or a podcast, and try to repeat it out loud at the same time, like an echo. Match their voice, speed, and emotion. Do this a few times and you'll notice something. Your pronunciation and rhythm improve fast. You stop translating in your head. It's powerful. This is real English pronunciation practice, not textbook stuff.
That technique changed the game for me too. When I started shadowing native speakers, I began to speak with more confidence. I wasn't thinking about sentence structure. I was copying how English sounds, and that's where fluency starts. You hear, you repeat, and your brain begins to connect the dots. Even accents and tones improve naturally. If you mimic what you hear, you'll notice your speaking becomes smoother without even trying too hard.
And don't worry if you don't sound perfect right away. That's part of the process. The more you listen and shadow, the more your brain picks up the music of English. Try watching short videos with subtitles, then listen again without them. Repeat what you hear. Try to match the rhythm. Bit by bit, your speaking confidence grows. That's how to speak English fluently, by training your ears to guide your mouth. Sounds weird, but it works.
I totally agree. Think of it like learning a new song. At first, you might mess up the lyrics or the tune, but after a few listens and some practice, you're singing along without effort. English works the same way, so don't rely only on reading. Let your ears do the learning. Shadow, repeat, copy, and feel the language as it's spoken. That's where your fluency begins, not in a book, but in your ears.
Now that we've talked about learning with your ears, let's take it one step further. Let's talk about something that's often underestimated: repetition. I know it doesn't sound exciting, but here's the truth. Repetition is the secret to remembering English long term. Just like learning to ride a bike or play a song on the guitar, your brain needs time and muscle memory. If you only hear a word or phrase once, you'll forget it. But if you repeat it 2, 3, even 5 times over a few days, it sticks.
Exactly, Ryan. I used to think repeating the same content was boring, but once I started doing it, I saw real results. I would re-listen to the same podcast episode for 3 days in a row. And guess what? On day 1, I understood just a little. On day 2, more. By day 3, I was finishing sentences in my head. That's what English repetition practice is all about. It builds real memory. Repetition doesn't waste time, it saves it because you stop forgetting.
Totally. Think of it like working out. You don't get strong by lifting a weight just once, you do it again and again. Same with English phrases. Try using spaced repetition apps. They're great tools that help you review words at just the right time before you forget them. Or go old school. Write down useful phrases in a notebook. Read them aloud a few times a day. Whether you use apps or paper, repetition helps you remember English phrases without stress.
And here's something cool. Repetition also makes speaking smoother. The more you hear and say a phrase, the more natural it sounds. You don't have to think about grammar or structure anymore. It just comes out. I had a list of 10 phrases I repeated every morning. In a week, they became part of my daily conversation. Repeating doesn't mean memorizing like a robot. It means getting comfortable with the flow of English. That's how language retention really works.
One of my students told me he listens to the same 5-minute English video while brushing his teeth every morning. Just 5 minutes, but every day. And it changed how he speaks. Because repetition trains your brain to recognize patterns. You stop translating, you start thinking in English. Even watching a funny movie scene or a TEDx talk a few times can help. Just don't move on too quickly. Let your brain absorb it. That's how real fluency is built, slowly through smart repetition.
And it's not about being perfect. It's about progress. Even if you repeat one small phrase like, "How's it going?" or "Let me think," over and over, it becomes yours. It lives in your brain. So give yourself permission to repeat. Re-listen to your favorite videos, write down phrases you love, say them out loud again and again. That's not being slow. It's being smart. Repetition isn't the enemy. It's your best friend in language learning.
So we've talked about the power of repetition, but here's something just as important: using real English. I mean, think about it. When you open a textbook, you see phrases like, "Hello, how do you do?" But do people actually say that? Hardly ever. Real English conversations are full of contractions, slang, and casual words like, "Hey, what's up?" or "I'm good, thanks." If you only study from a textbook, you might understand the grammar, but not how people actually talk in real life.
Yes, that's so true. I remember when I first moved to an English-speaking city, I thought I was ready. But then I heard native speakers chatting at a coffee shop, and I didn't understand a thing. They were using phrases I'd never seen in books. That's when I started watching sitcoms and YouTube vlogs. I focused on natural English speaking, how people really express themselves. And that made all the difference. I learned how people really ask questions, joke, and react.
Exactly. If you want to speak English confidently, you have to hear it in real settings. Watch interviews, podcasts, or even movies. But don't just focus on the words. Pay attention to how things are said. What tone do they use? What expressions come up often? For example, in a movie, you might hear, "I'm gonna head out," instead of "I am going to leave now." That's the kind of natural English speaking you need to pick up. It prepares you for real English conversations.
And here's a tip. When you watch shows or vlogs, turn on the subtitles first, then replay the scene without subtitles. Listen to how the words flow. Try repeating them out loud. This is how you train your ears and mouth at the same time. You'll notice expressions like, "you know what I mean," or "kinda like that." Things real people say every day. Textbooks don't usually teach you those, but real English comes from real situations, not perfect scripted dialogues.
Another great idea is to imitate the tone and rhythm. Don't just read the subtitles. Feel the way they talk. If someone says, "No way, seriously?" try saying it the same way. You're not just learning vocabulary, you're building confidence to speak naturally. And the best part? It's fun. You can learn English from movies, comedy scenes, even music videos. Just make sure the content is real, not overly formal. Fluency comes from hearing how English is used in daily life.
Absolutely. And don't worry if you don't understand everything at first. The goal isn't perfection, it's connection. The more you listen to real conversations, the more you'll recognize patterns and phrases. You'll be able to jump into conversations without panicking. So ditch the stiff textbook-style sentences. Focus on how people actually talk at work, at home, or with friends. That's the English that will help you live, not just study. That's the English that sticks.
Now that we've seen how powerful real-life English is, let's talk about something that holds a lot of learners back: memorizing. Look, memorizing long sentences or word lists might feel productive, but it doesn't help you speak. In real conversations, no one gives you a script. You have to think fast, and memorized lines don't help in those moments. That's why you need to train your brain to think in English by answering, not memorizing. That's where true fluency starts.
You're absolutely right. I used to write down tons of sentences and try to memorize them. But when someone asked me a simple question like, "What did you do today?" I froze. I had no ready answer. That's when I switched to question-answer practice. I'd ask myself small questions like, "What time did you wake up?" And I'd answer, "I woke up at 7." It sounds simple, but it helped me build real speaking skills. This method forces you to think in English, not just store information.
Exactly. And you don't even need a partner. You can practice on your own. Use flashcards or just speak to yourself in front of a mirror. Ask a question, then give a natural answer. "What did you eat today?" "I had some eggs and toast." Boom, real English speaking practice. You can even record yourself. It's a great way to notice your own mistakes and hear your progress. The more you respond in English, the faster your brain starts connecting the dots automatically.
Yes, and the key is consistency. Even 10 minutes a day of Q&A can make a big difference. Try to pick real, everyday questions like, "Where do you work?" or "What do you like to watch on weekends?" Keep it simple. Keep it real. This kind of English question-answer method is way more effective than memorizing grammar rules or vocabulary lists. You're not just storing words, you're using them in the same way you'll need in real conversations.
One thing that works really well is combining this with your daily routine. For example, while brushing your teeth, ask yourself, "What's my plan today?" or "How do I feel this morning?" Say your answers out loud. This helps make English part of your thinking, not something you pull out when needed. It becomes natural, like your native language. That's how you train your brain to think in English, by using it daily in small ways, not just in study mode.
Exactly. Fluency doesn't come from memorizing perfect answers. It comes from practicing your own thoughts in English. So speak about your day, answer simple questions, and do it often. Even if no one is around, just speak out loud. You'll feel more confident and more prepared for real conversations. That's what it's all about, being able to respond naturally when someone talks to you. And that only comes through practice, not memorization.
All right, now that we've covered how to train your brain to think in English, let's talk about something that many learners get wrong. They try to learn everything at once. New vocabulary every day, a new topic every hour. But here's the truth. If you tried to learn too much, you remember almost nothing. That's why the smart move is to learn deeply, not widely. Focus on one topic at a time. That's one of the most powerful English fluency techniques you can use.
Totally agree, Ryan. I used to jump from one YouTube video to another. 1 minute about job interviews, the next about travel English, then grammar tips. My brain couldn't keep up. But when I started focusing on just one topic per week, I noticed a huge difference. 1 week, I only studied phrases used at restaurants. I listened, repeated, spoke, even acted out dialogues. That kind of deep English learning helped me use those phrases naturally, without even thinking.
That's exactly it. Instead of learning 20 phrases at once, learn 5 phrases really well. Use them in conversations, write them in sentences, say them in different situations. If you're learning how to order food, try practicing it like this. Can I get? I'll have. Do you have? Over and over. Change the meals, the tone, the situation. This method helps you learn English effectively because you're building connections, not just storing facts.
And don't be afraid to repeat the same content again and again. I would watch the same interview or sitcom scene every day for a week. First, just to listen, then to repeat, and finally to copy the style and tone. The words became automatic. I wasn't just learning vocabulary, I was learning how to use it. That's how you go from slow to fluent. Going deep feels slower at first, but it actually speeds up your fluency long term.
Right, and it's not about being boring, it's about being smart. When you learn deeply, you get comfortable, you gain confidence. You're not guessing anymore, you know how to say something. Whether it's idioms, expressions, or just common daily conversations, pick one area and dive into it. It's one of the best ways to learn English effectively without burning out or getting overwhelmed. Less is more when it comes to real learning.
Yes. So instead of thinking, how much can I learn today? Ask yourself, how well can I use what I already learned? That mindset changes everything. Choose one small topic like shopping, small talk, or making a phone call, and work on it all week. Go slow, go deep, and the results will surprise you. Because fluency doesn't come from speed, it comes from depth. Master one thing, and the rest gets easier.
Finally, let's talk about something that's probably the most important and also the scariest for many learners: speaking every day. A lot of people wait until they feel ready to speak English, but here's the truth. You won't feel ready until you actually start speaking. And yes, you'll make mistakes. Everyone does. But fluency doesn't come from perfect grammar, it comes from daily English speaking. So talk, even if you stumble, even if you forget a word. That's how you grow.
Absolutely. I used to wait until I thought my sentence was perfect before opening my mouth. But by then, the conversation had already moved on. I realized that speaking daily, even just to myself, was helping me more than any class or textbook. I describe my morning routine, talk about the weather, or pretend I was ordering coffee. It felt silly at first, but slowly I stopped translating from my native language. I was thinking in English, and that's when I really started to improve.
Exactly. One thing I recommend is recording yourself. Just grab your phone, hit record, and talk about your day for a minute or two. Don't aim for perfection, just speak. Then listen back. You'll hear your strengths and your small mistakes. And those mistakes, they're gold. They show you exactly what to improve. That's not failure, that's feedback. And it's one of the best tools for English conversation practice. You can even track your progress week by week.
And if you can, join online speaking groups. There are so many English learners out there just like you who are eager to practice. You can chat on Zoom, WhatsApp, even on Instagram Lives. You'll realize quickly everyone makes mistakes and no one is judging you. In fact, most people admire your effort. So instead of hiding behind grammar books, speak up, even if you're nervous. That's how you overcome fear of speaking and start becoming confident.
And here's the key: be consistent. Speaking English every single day, even for 5 minutes, will build your fluency faster than trying to speak perfectly once a week. It's like going to the gym. You won't see results on day one, but give it a month of daily practice and you'll feel the difference. So don't be afraid of sounding wrong. Just keep talking. You're learning every time you speak. And remember, progress always beats perfection.
Couldn't agree more. Speaking daily builds fluency, confidence, and even joy. You start to enjoy the process, not just chase the result. And that brings us to the end of this episode. If you've stayed with us this far, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We hope these 7 rules make your English journey smoother, more enjoyable, and more successful. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep going. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of Speak Up.